From recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex, I'm your host, Steve Urban, and here is your Riderflex episode of the day. And on today's Riderflex podcast, we have Mitch Gordon, the co-founder and CEO of Go Overseas and Verto Education. Mitch, how you doing?
Doing well. Happy to be here.
You're in Berkeley?
It's San Francisco, actually.
San Francisco? Okay. Let me guess. It's beautiful weather and perfect.
I think you can see the sun coming out of the windows.
Nice.
Yeah, we've got offices in Berkeley and in Portland, Oregon. So I'm not in San Francisco for much longer, but I love the city.
Oh, you're about to move to Portland?
I do. Yeah, we just opened a new office there for Verto Education. We're hiring a whole bunch there. So the CEO's got to go up there too. And Portland's a great place. I'm excited to live there, actually.
It really is. Yep. Also a great city for sure. So before we get into the company stuff and all the entrepreneurial things, tell us about Mitch. Let's learn who Mitch is, personally. Tell us about your early childhood, your life growing up. Give us some of those deep, dark, personal secrets.
Ooh, deep, dark perspective. I'll start with an overview, but if you pull some other stuff out of me, we can always go there.
Okay.
But I think I grew up in upstate New York in Albany, actually a nice little town to grow up in, a few hours north of the city. I'm the oldest of 5 kids.
Oh,
so things were a little crazy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, a lot running around, vibrant family dynamic, challenging at times. We had a lot of animals running around too.
Did you live out in the country just a little bit, or kind of a rural area, or?
No, we were right in Albany, right in the heart of Albany, New York.
All right.
But yeah, had it was a good childhood, an interesting childhood. A lot of when you're one of 5. You end up having, I think, to develop a lot of independence because you're not getting the full attention, and there was a lot of chaos going on. But I think as I've looked back myself on a lot of elements of childhood, as I've gotten more reflective, I turned 40 last year. A lot of that stuff you go through as a child forms us, I think, more than we ever realize, and we start getting into that stuff a little bit more. If we're willing to do that work, which is hard to do, some interesting stuff comes out that can kind of deepen the life experience. So I've been a little bit on that journey too.
Well, if you were the oldest one, then that's where you got some of your early leadership skills too, obviously. Right.
It's funny. We joke around in my family a lot. And my youngest sister is 13 years younger than me.
Oh, what? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm 41. She's 28. We've joked around a lot of that. We have similar base, but that if she was the oldest and I was the youngest, that I would be more like her and she would be more like me. That the birth order thing in my family is like pretty stereotypical. From the oldest to the youngest. So yeah, I've got some of that in me, for better and worse.
So what'd your folks do?
My mom's a teacher. Actually, she just retired.
Okay.
Taught English and health.
Did you have her for high school?
I did not. That would have been interesting. She taught in a different school district.
Okay.
My dad's an accountant.
He is. Okay. Is he retired too?
He's not. I don't know if he'll ever retire. He loves it. He loves to work and loves to work with his clients.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So you graduated what? Albany High School?
I did, believe it or not. Albany High School.
All right.
Tumble high school, actually.
What's that? What was that?
It was a bit of a rough and tumble high school, actually.
Oh, was it? Okay. All right. Did you play sports or no?
Looking back, what's that?
Did you play any sports?
I did. I wrestled and played baseball.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you brought that up because of my son's also wrestled, and I know what that can do and how that toughens guys up and builds character and all kinds of things. So I'm very familiar with that life. Okay. Did you wrestle all 4 years?
I didn't. I just did it for a couple of years. I was just okay. I wasn't really great.
But still.
It was good. It was good. It toughened me up a bunch.
I was
definitely like one of those things you look back and you're like, some of the things in life where you don't realize you're learning when it's happening, but you look back and you realize how much growth actually happened. And I think wrestling was like one of those pit stops for me, for sure.
Agreed. And then how'd you decide where to go to college?
Well, I grew up in I would say, very regular American middle-class family.
Okay.
Especially with 5 kids. There wasn't a ton of money for college.
You mean your folks didn't have 5 college education funds set aside?
They did not. It was kind of but they did contribute, which is great. My grandparents contributed as well, and then I had to contribute as well. And that was the same for all my siblings. And so I went to a state school. I went to SUNY Binghamton University.
Okay.
Great school. I had a great experience there in upstate New York, and got to graduate without too much debt because it was a state. This is back 20 years ago now. I graduated in 2000 when things were actually still substantially cheaper than they are now, which is part of, I think, what's driven my whole entrepreneurial career. I mean, things it's tougher for kids nowadays. School's gone up way too much.
I know it is. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Now it's super tough. Now, how far away from Albany was that?
A little over 2 hours, like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
All right. Just far enough to get away from parents and have a little fun.
That's right. That's right. And funny, I didn't even really, ironically, looking back on my life now and how much traveling I've done and starting multiple international focused companies, but I didn't really travel myself at all until after college.
How'd you decide on management? I think was your undergrad.
I wish I could say it was more planned. I mean, to be honest, freshman year in college for me was not totally focused on academics. I mean, I learned a lot, but not always in the classroom. I joke around a lot that I say I was an 18-year-old boy and did 18-year-old boy things. I used the word boy on purpose because I was not an 18-year-old man. I had a lot of learning because I didn't think that at the time. I thought that I was, but I had a lot to learn. That's the life path. So
the grade point average as a freshman was like a 2.5 or something?
The grade, you know, it's funny. I have so not too far off from that, by the way. I think I ended freshman year with like a 2.7. Okay. And I say this to people all the time, like I've been a good student. I've been at the typical entrepreneurial path of a student.
Okay.
I think I graduated college with just barely a 3.0. I think senior year, I found a way to get it to 3.0009. It was seriously that. It was like 3 point and then a few zeros at the end. And I just made it over the line. But I've typically been that kind of student who wants to get the things I want to get out of the class, but isn't as focused on the grades. You know?
Okay. All right, cool. All right. And then, walk us through some of your early career. Cause I know you didn't go to grad school right after, right? I think you took a job and you had some stuff going on, and then you eventually went to grad school out at UC Berkeley. Walk us through some of that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I went to grad school a little late. I just turned 31. So I had about 10 years of experience before I went to grad school, which I think personally, everyone takes a different path, but at least a couple of years of real experience before going to grad school is something I highly recommend, because you just get so much more out of it after experiencing the real world and getting that first job. For all of us that remember that feeling of that first job, and you're in it every day. You're like, there's no summers anymore. There's no break anymore. This is just life. Right. I'm now working until retirement. It's an important experience to have, I think, before going back to grad school. So more specifically about me, right when I graduated, when I was 22, I did the thing that totally changed my life.
Okay.
And completely. I look back on it, and that was like one of those butterfly effect moments for me.
Mm-hmm.
When I graduated, I went and spent a year teaching English and studying Chinese in Taiwan.
Now, how did you decide to do that?
Honestly, so you asked about what I did, why I chose my major, and it was really just because it was the thing people did at Binghamton. It wasn't really the thing I wanted to do. I didn't necessarily want to go into management. I certainly didn't want to be an accounting major. Like accounting and getting a CPA, which I ultimately did, is not the path to entrepreneurship. It's not generally the most creative thing. But that's what I did. And because it was kind of the thing at that school that people did. And it actually ended up providing me with a tremendous base. But when I graduated, I really dreaded just getting stuck in a 9-to-5 forever.
Okay.
I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to travel. I wanted to do some different things before I, was in a full-time job.
Did you have some friends? Did somebody else go overseas and they're like, hey man, you got to come do this. This is a blast. Anybody kind of leading you there?
Not in my friend group. I had a cousin, but a generation older than me in my family, Stephanie.
Okay.
She'd done a lot of traveling in the 60s. And I think it really planted some seeds in me.
Okay. All right.
From her adventures.
Now, how did you have the money to do this overseas thing? Walk us through that. Did you save a bunch of money up, or how'd that work? How'd you live?
I had $0. I mean, in college, I worked as a Domino's delivery person and sold newspaper subscriptions over the phone just to have enough spending money.
I love that. Let's just take a deep breath right there. Domino's delivery guy, while in college, ends up becoming a founder of several companies. Love it. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
that's great.
I worked throughout I had all sorts of odd jobs.
But anyway, I'm sorry, I got you off. So how did you see out? So how did you survive overseas?
So what I did was, because I couldn't just travel, I didn't have any money, I needed to get a job.
Okay.
And so what I did was I found, I was really looking for teaching jobs in Asia. I thought learning Chinese would be something interesting.
Okay.
And I'd taken a class in college. So I really, honestly, I don't even think I knew what Taiwan was at the time. I knew what China was, but I didn't know the deep political history
Right.
between China and Taiwan. If anyone's curious, look it up on Wikipedia, you'll be fascinated.
Okay.
And then got a job, just like that butterfly effect of life, applied for a few places. A friendly guy Jacob, messaged me. We hit it off on an interview. And before I knew it, I was in Taiwan. So basically what you can do there, for people that don't know, and this is something that's still true, very true today, it's not that old, is you can live quite well in Asia, in places like Taiwan, South Korea, China, Japan, Thailand, make a good salary at 22 with a degree, and teach English, basically teaching English. So I did that for a year, teaching English and studying Chinese. And that year, just like that was the year that totally changed my life. I mean, I just grew so much. I didn't even realize that I was growing the way that I was growing, but it really provided like a foundation for me to draw from that I think I still draw from today.
Boy, that travel experience ties right into what you ended up doing for a living the rest of the way almost. Okay, got it. So that was a pivotal point in your life for sure. All right. So you come back from there after spending a year and you're like, all right, now what am I going to do?
Exactly. So and then I did the corporate thing.
Okay.
I had a job with PricewaterhouseCoopers in Manhattan, and I wore a suit and tie every day, and
you hated it. You were super bored.
I hate is a strong word. Yeah, but it's true. I think the only caveat is like, I knew I was lucky to have a good job that paid a good salary, but like I felt like my soul was dying a little bit every day. There's a joke in my family. I wrote my uncle an email at the time saying that I used a lot of Microsoft Excel. And I wrote him an email that the bars of Microsoft Excel were starting to look like the bars of a jail.
That's good. That's good.
I really did. I remember like having a conscious thought like this, I can't do this the rest of my life. But I did it for 3.5 years. Like I paid my dues, and it was a great foundation for me. Like I think one piece of advice I tell people all the time is like, your first job, choose carefully and then stay for at least 2 years. Even if it's painful, it's going to be good for you in the long run to force yourself to stay in that. And it's something that's challenging you and a little bit uncomfortable. And if you leave too early, that sets a bad standard for yourself. So I really did stick it out for the 3.5 years.
And then at some point, the entrepreneurial bug hit you, or it had been in there probably, but it's stirring around, and 2005 comes and you're like, oh, well, I got to do something else. And somehow you come up with Reach to Teach, which was your first company you founded, I believe. Tell us how that happened. How did you reach that point?
Gosh, I mean, it's funny. Before even talking about what I did at the company, when I think back then, which is now 15 years ago, I think back on how naive I was at the time, what entrepreneurship meant, but also that naivete was perfect. It was exactly what was needed in my first company at 26. I think I was almost 27 at the time. I had no idea what I was doing. And I've often reflected that on all three of my companies in some ways, actually, that if I knew then what I know now, I would never have done it, but I'm happy I didn't know.
That's good.
One of those type of things.
Yeah.
And so I remember like having this thought that I wanted to go to grad school then to change my career. And I thought, well, I'll just start this company for 6 months and then I'll just run it while I'm in grad school.
Okay.
Of course, like what company can get started in 6 months and run it part-time in grad school? I just had no idea how all-consuming entrepreneurship and starting a company from the ground up could be.
Did you know what you wanted to start? Did you just think I want to start a company, or you knew you wanted to start this company?
Yeah, good question. Boy, no, I knew I wanted to start a company.
But why? Why? Where'd that come from? Neither one of your parents were entrepreneurs. That's why I'm wondering how'd that happen?
My dad is. My dad owns his own small CPA firm.
Oh, whoa. Okay, so he owns his own firm. Got it. There we go. There it is. All right.
And I think give myself credit. One real gift that my parents gave me, and there's a whole mix of things our parents give us, that's for sure. But I try to focus on the positive things. Is they never tried to hold us back. They always told us that we could.
Okay.
I know a lot of I've learned from dating and getting to know people. A lot of parents actually hold their kids back a little bit. And my dad was a really entrepreneurial, open-minded guy who said, like, you can do anything you want to do. He's very creative. He encouraged creativity in me. And so I think that was a real spark for me.
Now I got to ask you, when you talked to him, because I'm assuming you talked to him, you're like, hey, I think I want to start this thing. But you already were a CPA at that point, right?
I did.
So you could have worked for his firm. Was he like, Mitch, look, just come over here and join the family business?
You ask really good questions. That was never my plan. It's funny. He and I will joke around about that a little bit now. One, I don't know how well we would have gotten along.
Okay.
I think our relationship has come a long way. I think if we were going to work on something now together, it might be okay. Or like just the depth of emotional awareness and the work that we've both done on each other, on ourselves and on our relationship. It could have worked as a 25-year-old. I think it would have been a really bad choice for our relationship.
Okay. But you danced around it, but didn't really go there. And then, okay. All right, cool. And so Reach to Teach. Now that concept came from your teaching overseas to a certain degree. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I think as I look back on all three companies that I've started, they all were really problems that I was trying to solve in my own life.
That's good.
Things that I'm one of those people for better and worse, that I'll obsess about a problem.
Okay.
And I'll just go really deep on it. Like I'm one of those people that will like find someone will tell me something interesting and then I'll take a dive down a Wikipedia rabbit hole and learn everything I can about that thing. And like try and pick apart the Rubik's Cube of the problem until I find a solution. That's particularly true for my new company, for Verto Education, which is such a complicated company.
Okay.
That first company, Reach to Teach, was relatively simple. And the problem I was trying to solve there was I thought about the impact that my experience teaching abroad had on my life. I thought that it made me just the number one thing is I think it made me a lot more respectful of other cultures and other ways of viewing the world, and a lot more grateful for the experience we have as Americans, which we don't fully often realize how lucky we are, even in the scope of the world. Like I'll often joke around about like the plains of Africa to today. Like the human experience has changed so much in such a short period of time, but because we're in this small little snippet that we are in our lives, we don't realize that we're just part of this larger wave. And we don't realize that how lucky we are to get to often, even if we don't have enough money, but we have often our health and clean food. And that's enough.
Fresh water to drink.
Fresh water and food. And like, if we can have a sense of gratitude, which I have a real gratitude practice that I try and work on now, a sense of gratitude that food and water and family and love in our life is enough, then it kind of lets all the other stress just wash off you a little bit. If you can
so true. So true.
I can't always do it. But I think, that experience in Taiwan was the beginning of me being able to kind of see that in my life, to travel around the world and see actually how a lot of other cultures have a lot less money than us, a lot less achievement mindset of what they need in life, but they're a lot happier. Yeah. And that lesson for me was really poignant in my life, to see people who had nothing, but they had love and they had their families and they were happy. And I was really interested in the emotional experience that they had internally, how they can have that. Because ultimately, what is money for if not for happiness? Like if it's driving us crazy because we want more and a bigger, better. So I think at the time I thought, well, if more people could have this experience, we'd live in a better world.
Okay.
And so starting Reach to Teach was this idea that we could be a screen for good schools on the Asian side, to screen good schools and also screen the teachers, because a lot of times the teachers would come over and not be serious about the teaching, and the kids deserve a teacher that cares about them. And the teachers, the Americans, these young Americans, deserve a school that also cares about them. So we tried to match good teachers with good schools and encourage more people to do it. And that was kind of the initial genesis of that idea. And it ended up becoming a really nice little company.
And nobody else was doing that.
There were a couple other small companies doing it. And then there actually kind of became this explosion of recruitment companies. We were one of them.
So if I was a teacher and I was thinking, man, I want to go overseas for a year or two, but I have no idea what school to call. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know how to get it set up. Back then, when you had Reach to Teach, they would have just called you and you would have said, hey, here you go. I'm going to help you through the process.
That's right. We'd sign a contract with a school in Asia and they'd say, you like, we trust you, Mitch, and your company Reach to Teach, to screen the teacher, to interview them and make sure that we're getting a quality teacher.
Gotcha.
On the teacher side, our promise to the teachers were, because there could be at the time, when cultures meet, there's very different expectations.
I bet.
And that can be really challenging. being challenging in this country alone, let alone in a different
country. Right. That's what Riderflex spends all our time on, is trying to match personality to culture. I can't hardly imagine how much deeper you have to go to match the right personality to a culture overseas. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, it was hard, and it didn't always work.
But your revenue came from the schools. Is that right?
That's 100% right. Yeah. So it was a totally free service for the teachers.
So not a bunch of startup cost, other than you some travel and some systems and some back end systems and some websites, or what was your, what it cost you to get it going, basically?
God, this is fun. I haven't thought about this stuff in a long time. Yeah, it was a service. It's a services business, and the company's still going. I'm not an owner anymore. My employees own it, but ex-employees own it, and they do a great job with it. But it was really a simple services company. It's like a recruitment company in the States. I mean, simple model, but hard to execute.
Right.
Right. Just, signing the contracts with the schools, providing a great service for them, caring about what we were doing, and the same on the other side for the teachers.
So not a bunch of capital to get started, but did you kind of start it when you were at Price Waterhouse and you had still some income, or did you just quit there? All of a sudden you got no income coming in and you're trying to scramble to get cash to come in to pay the rent. What's the...
Oh, gosh, all this flood of memories coming through for me now. No, I took the deep dive. I think I could go really deep at some point. We should, if there's time. I imagine you always work in the psychology of entrepreneurship. And
well, the reason I asked that type of question, I just really believe, Mitch, there's so many people that have an idea. They want to be an entrepreneur. They want to be a business owner. They want it really bad. They think about it all the time, but they're scared, right? They don't know, like, okay, well, how am I going to pay the mortgage next month? And what happens if I start the business, it doesn't make it, and I drain my 401k, and how am I going to pay myself for the next 6 months? I mean, that's the reality. And that's what everybody thinks about that wants to start a business. And that's why I'm asking you some of these, because at some point you had to say, I'm walking away from this job to start a business.
That's right. And it was a good job, like a really good job. And so I took a dive off the deep end. I've often reflected on what has made me an entrepreneur. I don't necessarily think that I'm better at entrepreneurship. I think there's something in me that allows for the risk. Like once you're in the river, once you take that leap into the river,
right,
you're just trying to swim. I think like somehow I'm willing to take the leap into the river. Maybe other people would be a better swimmer.
All right. But you got it going fast enough to eventually survive and put food on the table, pay the rent. You got.
That's right. And so to answer your question directly there, I took a deep dive. I had like $5,000 in the bank from my few years in Manhattan.
Oh, wow.
And 6 months in, I mean, I had $15,000, $20,000 in credit card debt. Just, the little things you need to do to get the company off the ground. Right. That was terrifying. I mean, I can remember like nights looking at the ceiling and really being like, what the F did you do?
There you go, listeners. So let that sink in. $5,000 of the bank, ran up $20,000 of the credit cards, and had some nightmares and woke up in the middle of the night. There you go. Welcome to being an entrepreneur. But jumping fast forward, you built it up. So when you ended up selling it, you sold. Somebody bought it, right? Is that you had an exit?
Yeah. So it's kind of tied to the next company, Go Overseas. When I tried to solve a problem with Go Overseas that I was seeing in Reach to Teach. And then as Go Overseas started growing, I decided to sell Reach to Teach my employees. We're doing a great job and they were willing to take it over, and I wanted to focus on Go Overseas.
Okay.
Quick sale with in the company.
Okay, now, so let me ask you a few questions there. So you saw this other need, you founded Go Overseas while you were still at Reach to Teach. And then eventually you're like, okay, I can only do this one thing. And then you sold off your portion of Reach to Teach and focused all. Okay, got it.
That's right.
Okay, but now you're a co-founder with Go Overseas. So did somebody from Reach to Teach come with you, or who was the co-founder with you?
Yeah, we had two co-founders, one main one, and then our first employee ended up becoming a third co-founder as well. My first company I did on my own, which I much prefer having co-founders upon reflection, just my personality.
Now hold on, one quick question. When you exited Reach to Teach, it obviously wasn't enough for you to just retire. It wasn't like this huge giant,
No, no. It wasn't even life changing. Everything's in perspective there, but I don't mind being pretty transparent about it.
Great.
It was a few $100,000.
Okay. Okay.
It wasn't going to change my whole life.
Had a little nest egg to go overseas going, little bandwidth there.
And I spent all of it pretty much.
All right. So now, let's get into go overseas. Tell us about the company. Just give us the quick overview, because it sounds like you're just about ready to exit that now for your third company, if I'm right.
Yeah, Go Overseas is an extremely stable company now, run by my co-founders in there, and we've got an incredible team, incredible employees. So that's just a very stable company, and I'm just not in it every day anymore. I'm not the active CEO anymore, but still the primary owner in Go Overseas. But I'm really grateful to have just an incredible team there that care deeply about the mission.
And for people that don't know the company, just give us the quick overview.
Go Overseas is a review and booking website for meaningful travel. So we list basically every program in the world that is a multiple day meaningful travel program. So what that means practically is study abroad, volunteer abroad, internships, gap year programs, high school abroad, language school programs, adventure travel. If you're looking for kind of any program in the world that is multiple day run by an organization, we list it on our site with ratings and reviews so people can make a more informed, educated decision when they're choosing those type of programs.
So is that like the Yelp for overseas travel programs?
Exactly what we say. We're some combination of a Yelp, a TripAdvisor, an Airbnb style website with reviews and booking.
And who pays you? Yeah.
It's the organizations that are on our site. It's basically a freemium model that any organization, and there's more than people think. All those categories I just mentioned, there's something like 30,000 plus of those programs on our site. So a lot of them are just these really neat family-run organizations. There's some bigger companies too, but a lot of them are just these really neat companies that care so much about what they do for the world, the projects that they run, and so they'll pay us for basically to be promoted on leads on the website.
Okay.
Do a job board, things like that.
So if I want to go overseas for just about anything, whether I'm volunteering or whatever, Go Overseas can help me. They can help me figure it out.
That's right. And if you we have 1 million plus visitors a month on the site now. So
wow.
You kind of type anything in those categories into Google.
Wow.
You're going to see Go Overseas, if not number one on the results, but on the top of the first page generally.
Can I ask you, when you went through that $200,000, when you went through it to get Go Overseas going, how long did it take before you were actually making good money? Was that the second year? Was that the third year? How long did you have to eat ramen noodles is my question.
Oh boy, it was extremely, extremely stressful. And that company almost went under a couple times.
Ooh.
Now it's extremely stable, but I didn't pay myself a penny from Go Overseas for 3.5 years.
Wow. Holy cow. Okay. And then after you got it going and started paying yourself, then there were some other times where you're looking at cash flow going, holy cow, we're going to miss payroll next week, like that type of stuff.
Not really. Really was those first 3.5 years.
Okay.
The first 3 years and each of those years we were growing and getting bigger. But it's just slow. Companies, I say this to people all the time. Sometimes people will say, I'm going to do it for a year and see where I am.
Right.
And I'll think, then you maybe don't even bother, because it takes longer than a year to start a company. And that was the whole thing with all three of my companies. It takes, especially for a non-services based business like Go Overseas, it's a platform, and that takes even longer.
Now, so you started that 10 years ago, but now you've decided now to venture out and start yet your third company, Verto Education. So tell us about that.
Well, that one's it's interesting. I feel like kind of the full circle of my life, because Verto Education is, I feel now, even after, it's amazing that I still have energy left for this, I'll say, after 15 years of entrepreneurship. I wonder about my sanity. I've made the joke recently that the best definition of insanity is someone who started 3 companies. Something off, maybe in a good way, but
speaking of all the stress, do you have a family, or do you have a partner, or you a spouse, or anything? Do you have any kind of family, in the background going, hey, why are we doing this for the third time? Is anybody pushing you there? A relationship of any kind?
I do not have a family, and I'll be vulnerable and share that I think, at 41, starting 3 companies has not been particularly helpful towards finding a long-term partner.
Right. You try to find a partner. They're like, what do you do? So you're not stable with your cash flow, and you have no.
And even when I have been, which has been for a while now, I've worked too hard.
Worked all the time. Yep. You scared a lot of people off.
I definitely, there are some women who, yeah, I don't blame them looking back. I've done personal work the last few years in particular. I think I've got a better balance in my life, but I'll be honest, I'm just saying that was very hard. And when you care so much about something and you put so much of your self-worth into it, I think that's the danger actually that I don't have now anymore. I think for a long time, my entire sense of who I am as a person and my success in the world and, the value that I put on myself in the world was really attached to my success and my companies. And I look back on that now as being a growth period that I needed to get through. And I really now don't feel that way anymore, actually. I think that's been, actually, it's certainly made my personal life better. And I think it's actually ironically made me a better CEO as well, to not have that level of need to succeed being tied to my whole sense of self.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you very much. So now, how long have you had Verto going? A year and a half, 2 years?
Almost 2 years.
And do you have employees there?
Yeah, we do. No, I mean, we're growing really, really quickly there. I didn't actually answer your question and tell you what we do.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Give us the overview and go ahead.
That's my fault. I went through the deeper, some of the other stuff rather than talking about what we do. So our whole goal with Verto Education is to help transform higher education. The name Verto, actually, the root of it is transformation in Latin. And look, my perspective is this, and this is where the real passion to start Verto came from. The real mission was higher education needs to change a bit in this country. And the change is coming, by the way. We could get into a deep conversation around how universities are struggling. They're going to start shutting down, actually. But the point of higher ed should be, how can we create better informed, engaged citizens of our country that contribute and that also can get good jobs and be a part of our culture in constructive ways. And in some ways, higher ed is not done what it needs to do for everybody. I mean, there's especially this gap between wealthy students attending the best schools,
right?
And this access and affordability thing is a big issue. One stat there that has been both scary to me, but also inspiring the work that we do. So it's quite a stat. Some debate about it, but it's close.
Okay.
50% of the students at the top 100 institutions in the country. So 50% of the students who are at the top 100 colleges in the United States are from the top 1% of wealth.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. The rich keep getting richer, right?
And that needs to change. I think ultimately our society is healthier when there's opportunity for everybody. I mean, that's part of the American dream.
Agreed.
We need to find ways to have everyone have access. This whole idea that, right, we're not held back by our parents. The parents can come over. This is what the country is built on. People can come over as immigrants, and then their kids have every opportunity that other kids do. And that was true for a long time. And I think that's not fully true today. And if we don't make it true, it's ultimately we are all going to pay the price for it. Everyone, your money or not, should believe in this because the future of the country depends on that. So when I looked at the higher education system and thought these changes need to happen, I thought, well, how can I be a part of the change in that system? And I was really lucky that I understood the system really well through Go Overseas. So that was the catalyst for it.
And quite frankly, I feel the passion coming out now, Mitch. I feel it. I feel the passion. I feel it. It's evident.
Yeah, this is what I'm living every day now. And so what we really did is, so here's what Verto does. Here's what Verto Education does. We run freshman year in college. So students can spend their full freshman year, either 1 semester or 1 year with us, doing their kind of core general education curriculum, like what they would do their freshman year, but in a much more interesting way that is designed to help accelerate growth and independence and emotional awareness and get them ready for college and job readiness and ultimately to succeed in the world, right? This increase of just grit and resiliency and ability to live independently, which is another whole issue we could get into, like, students not being ready for college nowadays because we protected them too much in society in ways that you and I weren't protected as much growing up. That's a conversation we could have if we're interested. It's a whole bunch of big issues here that I love talking about.
I can tell.
So there's kind of three main things that we focus on as in the mission of what we do is the most important thing. Like every single person in the company, we have 50 people at Verto Education now, right? Every single person cares about this mission, and we screen for it with this value-based mission approach. When we hire people is number one, that we give every student that comes through us an accelerated life and academic experience, right? That they're more ready for the world through spending their freshman year with us. Number two, we can actually be a catalyst for them getting into a better school than they would be able to get into directly as freshmen. Partnerships we have with colleges.
I see.
So the model is that students apply through us, through our application system. We have 26
before they decide they want to go to USC or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we have 27 partner colleges where the admissions flow to those colleges comes through us. So they don't even need to apply to the college at all.
I see. All
they
right.
spend a year abroad with us doing experiential education and service learning in other countries while they're doing their credit. And then they have this guaranteed transfer to these colleges that we work with. The admission, they don't ever need to apply directly at all. And those are great schools like the University of Oregon, the University of Vermont.
I saw that.
Bucknell. I mean, we have 27 partner schools, and we're really growing quickly there with more schools coming on board because they see that what we're doing for students is really improving student outcomes. And that's what education should be about. Like, it's supposed to be about improving student outcomes and giving every single 18 college-age kid a chance to succeed in life. That's the whole point of it.
Love it. Love it.
And so then the third part of it is affordability. We're really focused on affordability. I mean, the hiring system has gotten a bit out of control with pricing. I often make this joke that if an alien came to Earth and said, tell me about your education system. I want to see how you educate your young people. And we described the United States education system to them. It would make no sense because we'd say, okay, well, our students come to college and they pay for not just their college education, but they pay for sports teams, they pay for research, they pay for all these other administrative things. Sometimes we have museums on campus and lazy rivers on campus and big fancy dorms. And there's all these things that are bundled into education. Actually, so statistics are that out of what students pay for college, only about 15% of what they pay actually goes to things that are for them, their educational experience.
Wow, I didn't know that. Never heard that stat before.
Right, the other 80+% goes to the things I just mentioned.
Okay.
And then when we graduate our students now, sometimes the universities even hire them or they go into jobs where they can't even pay off their loans and the salary that they have. and then the universities also ask students to give alumni donations.
Right.
We do it. And we do it, right? We actually do it. Like, it's the hold that the university system has on the American psyche is amazing. And also, it didn't used to be that way. Like, even when we went to school not that long ago, it wasn't this way. Costs have increased so much. And we're putting this burden on our 18 to 22-year-olds and then asking them to carry that burden the rest of our life. It has to change. We need our leadership to do it in constructive ways that has the students, the 18 to 22-year-olds' best interests at heart. So that's what we're trying to do. So also, we are very affordable because we're not spending money on anything else but education, right? Okay. Every penny that the students pay for us goes to their education and costs surrounding their education.
Does it cost more than the typical semester? So it's for one semester, or is it for the whole year?
So they can spend either one semester or 1 year with us.
And is the average cost for 1 year with you less than the average cost for 1 year at a standard college?
It's way more affordable.
Way more affordable. Okay.
And they get way more out of it. So our semesters run between $10,000 and $20,000 per semester.
Okay.
Everything included other than flight. So if you talk about, and then there's a bunch in between. So let's say at a $10,000 or even the $20,000 level, then we sum at 15. That's like a third to half of what college costs.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, a private school now can be $70,000 a year, but even a state school all in for tuition, room and board can be $40,000 to $50,000.
I'm so glad you're clarifying that, because when I did study on you and the company before the interview, as soon as I saw the program, I thought, oh, this is great. This is really cool for these young people to go overseas and experience this in their lives before college starts. But I'm sure this is just for rich families. So that was my immediate thought, right? And so I'm so glad you're walking us through this. Okay, great.
Yeah, no, actually, so I'm really glad you brought that up. We have an extremely core mission that our goal is to have our education system, Verto, what we do, accessible to everybody.
That's
So
great, man.
we give scholarships as well. Students have access to financial aid just like they would in any college. So, we can take a student who, let's say $10,000 for a semester, with the aid that they have access to and scholarships that we can give. It's more affordable, not in every situation, but often more affordable than going straight to a regular college. And then they get into a school, back to the point I was making before, having some of those first-gen students, underprivileged students from certain backgrounds, that they can get access to a school through us. Some of these great schools we work with that they never would have been able to get into directly as a freshman, for a whole host of structural reasons I could go into. So then what we're doing is not only are we changing their life through the semester or year that they spend with us, but we're changing the whole trajectory of their life, because they're getting into a better school and they're going to have better opportunities for jobs through our system, through the network that we've created, than they ever would have had just
Great.
in the current system.
I love it. I mean, what a great idea. What a great program. So nobody else is doing this? I mean, do you have any competition?
We don't. I mean, I'm sure that'll happen eventually, and that, imitation is the finest form of flattery.
Right.
Now, this was an incredibly complicated model to set up.
Oh, I bet. I mean, just the relationships with all the schools and everything. I'm thinking about that as you're telling me. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. This didn't get put together overnight. But are you bootstrapping it? Did you raise cash? How'd you get it going?
So we bootstrapped it the first year and a half.
Okay.
Which was the same experience I had the first couple of times, an unbelievable amount of work.
You like putting yourself through hell and waking up in the middle of the night with very little cash in the bank. You like doing that to yourself.
I don't know if I like it. I'm somehow accustomed my mind and my body to it.
But you bootstrapped it for a little bit. Did you raise some seed money recently?
We just raised a significant round of capital.
Okay.
To grow. So that is really exciting and ultimately, really important for the mission. Being able to reach more students.
Is that your first experience at asking somebody to write a check?
It is, because I bootstrapped my last two companies, and it was a totally brand new experience for me. And boy, was it a whirlwind.
Yeah, I bet that was an experience. Okay. Yeah. Cause I know that's a whole different topic, right? When we get into what it's like to ask people for money. I'm guessing it didn't happen on your first conversation.
No, but it did happen pretty quickly, actually. But no, I did, 70 meetings, something like that.
70 meetings. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That puts it in perspective. I hope you didn't have to give up control. Are you still making the decisions?
Yeah, totally fair question. No, we absolutely, we're still in control, and
Great.
We really picked. Thankfully at the end we had a lot of choices in investors to go.
Oh, great. Okay, great job. All right, awesome.
And actually, the one we chose is First Round Capital, and they've been amazing. I mean, one of the reasons we went with them is that they so believed in our mission and what we're doing, that it's not just something to make a profit, but that our mission to serve students. We're actually a B corporation.
Okay.
Okay. We're a value-based organization that is not just beholden to profit. That our mission is to serve students and to improve the educational experience of every student, and they're aligned with that.
You know what? I have no doubt that you had options on cash because, first of all, and I'm not an angel investor, but I know a lot of them, and I can just tell you, just talking to you, first of all, the passion that you have for it. That's number one. The passion and the energy that you have for the topic, and your knowledge around the topic, and your past experience where you've proven that you will kill yourself to get companies going and started and that they'll make it. Like, just your track record combined with your passion, combined with the fact that it's a great idea with very little competition. No wonder you had offers for cash. I think it's great. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. That is meaningful to me, but I'll also say that, money is just a means to an end. It doesn't, right. It's not a victory in and of itself. And there's increased pressure when you raise money.
That too.
I tell everybody, if you don't have to raise money, and it's not a VC backed idea, don't do it.
Yeah. By the way, was it an angel or VC or PE or what can you share that or?
It was a VC.
Okay.
I mentioned their name, First Round Capital. They've been
that's right.
Phenomenal. I mean, truly, they're one of the best. And I really, really partner with their Finn Barnes and people there have been amazing. I mean, they really treat their companies like a family.
Nobody's calling you to ask you about a line item on the income statement.
No. No, and they trust us and they believe in the mission of what we're trying to do. And we have an amazing group of angel investors that have deep experience in education and believe the system needs to change, believe in our way of changing the system and our model and how, the increase in access and affordability. So yeah, it's been, I mean, look, I'm sure there's going to be catching me at an interesting time because we actually just finished that last month. So
great job.
It's going to be quite a ride, but we're up for it.
Great job. I know we're getting close to the end. You got time for a couple more questions? I'd like to ask you a couple of wrap-ups, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what would be the biggest piece of advice you would give to somebody that wants to start their own company and they're scared and they just haven't taken the plunge? What would you tell them?
It's actually an easy answer for me, but it might not be one people hear a lot. I'm not sure, and it's one that took me over 10 years of entrepreneurship to figure out. The emotional journey is as important as the intellectual building a company journey. Starting 3 companies has been quite the emotional journey for me.
I bet.
Looking failure in the face a lot, which I think every entrepreneur does. The impact that it has on family relationships and romantic relationships and friendships. And it's not like the kind of thing that happens overnight, so you often don't see it happening. Right. It's like looking in the mirror every day and not seeing yourself get older or gain weight. It's like all of a sudden you wake up one day and you just realize like it happens slowly, but this is my whole life right now. And I think just it's going to happen whether you are prepared for it or not. It's just part of the thing. Like some things in life you just need to experience. But I think having a practice of a relationship with yourself and getting to know yourself a little bit better and being vulnerable with yourself and other people about the emotional journey, having those outlets is absolutely critical. Or you will burn out. And like I have looked burnout in the face and seen what and I would have burned out if now I didn't have a better relationship with myself, most importantly. I have meditation practice that's been really important to me. It's been transformative for my life. And not a non-religious. It's funny when I used to hear people talk about meditation, I think that what's this like religious? It's not at all. It's just like in America, we work out our bodies physically. And I used to be someone that was, worked out in the gym and kept myself in physical shape a lot, but we don't work out our minds. And meditation is ultimately like working out your mind. It's just a deeper awareness of what's happening in our minds. I really highly recommend some level of that for people starting the entrepreneurial journey, ultimately just to enjoy the journey. And ironically, if your whole life is not dependent on the success, but you're still giving full forth effort, it's a much more enjoyable journey.
How about some quick advice for first-time CEOs? All of a sudden, they started a company, they're the CEO, and they have 10 employees, and they've never even been a supervisor before.
I'd say there's 2 quick things that come to mind. One is find a coach, someone who, and this for me, early days, so lucky to have people around me that could help me manage the experience. Like I could go to them. It's, the entrepreneurial fraternity. It's like you could have a great relationship with your wife or your husband, but no one understands the entrepreneurial journey like another entrepreneur. So you need at least a couple of them in your corner that you can talk to.
Totally agree.
And also, I think optimize for employees that understand that you're not perfect and that you're vulnerable with and understanding you don't have all the answers, and share that a little bit. Like, don't try to be the hero. Be really vulnerable about things you know and don't pretend. Be honest with yourself and everybody about what you're good at and you need help with. And that will really, really help. There's a temptation to want to think that you need to be the expert in everything. You need to know the best. I've ultimately become better as I've been able to be more vulnerable with my employees and people around me.
That's great. That's great advice. Great advice. 2 more last questions. I'll make them fast. If you could call your 21-year-old self today and give that person any advice, let's say, the kid coming out of, undergrad, I'm guessing you're 21 at the time. What would you tell that young man today?
22. Yeah. Oh my God. It's interesting. Like there's a lot I'd tell him, but also maybe it all needed to happen in the order that it needed to happen. And,
Okay.
I made a lot of mistakes and learned so much along the way, and I wouldn't change it. Like, enjoying that. I typically have been the type of person to be extremely hard on myself.
Okay.
Like, it's like I've talked to my therapist, which is also something that I recommend. Entrepreneurs.
Yeah. By the way, meditation and therapist are two words I hear pretty often when I'm talking to a founder or a CEO, just so you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, but go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think, there's a quote I'm not going to get it right exactly recently. Let me actually, you can give me 1 second.
Yep. Go for it. I talk, as I talk to founders that have been in it for 3, 4, 5 years, they almost all of them talk about some form of having a coach or meditation or something to exercise their mind. So I was really glad you brought that up. But go ahead. You got the quote?
I do. Thank you. This really resonated with me recently. And the quote is, "What is a hero? Someone who has lived through pain and trauma and helped others because of it."
It's pretty good. That's pretty good.
So I think
I like it.
A lot of times entrepreneurs or people want to be a hero.
I like it.
We want to hide our own traumas or things we've gone through in life. But actually, if we can help other people because of it, that's the best way to go. And that's the idea of servant leadership, which I've not always been good at. I've often been terrible at, but is the way I try to be now. And I still don't always do it, but it's my goal.
Is that how would you define your core purpose in a sentence or two? Is that pretty close?
Definitely. I think before, my core purpose for my first 2 companies, honestly, was like, it was still mission driven, but I think it was probably a little bit more ego driven. Like this idea of like achievement in this American mindset of like achievement and materialism and individual success. And now I view it as like that the best thing we all need to do is create a better society, and we all benefit from that. And that's the goal. And that ironically, I think when I connect with people in that way and I see the impact on students, especially with Verto now, I get a lot more joy out of that. Like, personally, I feel a sense in my body and in my heart, a lot more joy from that kind of impact than I do from a monetary success.
I got to tell you, Mitch, you're super authentic, and I really appreciate it. I mean, you're passionate, you're authentic, you're real, and I love that. I mean, there's just nothing fake about you, and that means a lot to me. I'm glad to know Mitch Gordon. Trust me. Some super inspirational stuff, my man. Thank you so much for sharing everything. I know we're about 4 minutes over, and I could keep you for another hour probably. Some really good stuff. Appreciate you sharing everything on the Riderflex podcast. So for the listeners, just real quick, is it just I just want to look and see, is it for the website for Verto Education? Is it vertoeducation.org?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. And if they're interested, just go to the website.
Yeah, that's right. And I'd say, a lot of ways what we think we're doing is creating a movement. And when people hear about what we're doing, they get really excited about it. They feel they want to be a part of that movement. And so we're hiring quite a bit actually right now, especially in our Portland office, and people who are passionate about changing higher education, which a lot of people are.
Great.
Visit us and tell people about us and just find ways to engage with us. We love it, actually. We respond to everything. I
signed up to all the social media sites this morning, matter of fact, when I was doing my education on it.
Seeing the, what I do, our students, they're all around the world right now. They're all around the world and doing these projects while they're learning. And they're on Instagram. You can see that on Instagram. That's the most fun, like seeing the impact on the kids.
That's great. I love what you're doing, my man. Congratulations on everything. Mitch, thanks so much for being on the Riderflex podcast.
Really appreciate the time. And I've done a bunch of these kinds of things. And this was went the deepest from like a human experience perspective. So I really appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it. Take care, sir.
Have a great weekend.
All right. Bye-bye.
The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.